Good afternoon to all of you. Dr. Sandeep Sancheti, Dr. Senthil Nathan, and other important dignitaries and friends who are present here for this very important Dialogue India Academia Conclave. Very happy to be here today, and I'll be talking about innovation, technology, and entrepreneurial mindset, how it changes and affects the higher education scenario in India. I have decided that I'll skip my PPT for two reasons. One, I observe that whoever is not using the PPT, their own photo is projected in a big size here. So for a lesser mortal like me, larger than life image is very important. So I thought I'll do that. The second reason is I don't want to contribute to any more attrition from this room because the outside the room looks like more attractive sometimes. But I'll stick to it, and I don't want to come between you and your mobile. So I'll talk to you, and a few important highlights will be mentioned. There's a small interesting story which I have seen and which I have learned from quite a bit. There's a young boy who always runs towards. By the way, you'll have to project my photo, otherwise it doesn't work this way. There's a small boy who runs to a barber shop every time, and on this fine Sunday, this barber is actually taking care of one gentleman sitting in the barber shop. He's actually shaving. So the boy runs to him, and now he tells this gentleman, look at this boy, he's such a dumb. So the boy comes running, and the barber offers two hands like this. In one hand, there is a 5 rupee coin, and in another hand, there is two 1 rupee coins. So this is 2 rupees and this is 5 rupees. And he tells the person, the customer, that look at this boy, he always takes 2 rupees and he doesn't take 5 rupees. So he offers again, and the boy quickly takes the 2 rupees and then he runs away. 2 coins, 1 rupee each. And then the person who is there in the barber shop is wondering, why does he do like that? Then he finishes his shaving and walks out, and on the street, he again comes across that small boy who bought an ice cream with that 2 rupees. And he stops that boy and asks him, Beta, kya hua? Why did you take 2 1 rupee coins and not the 5 rupees coin? And he says, if I had taken the 5 rupees coin, the game would be over that day itself. He would never offer again these 2 rupees versus 5 rupees. And very often we underestimate how these kids react and respond to various stimuli that we give. In fact, the boy is much cleverer, much smarter, that he would want the game to continue. He would want that offer of 2 rupees to come to him. But the day if he had chosen 5 rupees, the game would come to an end. That's very, very interesting for us. Innovation, all of us think, is technology. And all of us quickly put entrepreneurship also into that. Innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship are used alternately for one another in various contexts, in various fora. These are very different, distinct items. In higher education or in any stream, I think innovation is innovation. Innovation is a major platform or a phenomenon that helps us solve problems. I think problem solving is one extremely important thing for us. We have a lot of problems, and therefore problems will have to be solved. Now, without bringing the context of technology, if we talk about innovation, even inside the classroom or outside the classroom, how we actually solve the problem of loss of attention inside the classroom. How teachers will have to innovate to hold their attention, how they change the formats. Not merely, technology that gives you various tools to get glued to them, but inside the classroom, to be effective, to be motivating the students who are in front of you, I think innovation will have to come. Innovation in terms of programs is a different story altogether. A new program which is a requirement of the industry and the market and is going to be highly employment oriented, well, that is one kind of innovation. I think innovations will play a major role if they solve problems, and if the students are encouraged to look for problems and then they solve. I think that method itself is innovation that I think we should focus on, apart from a host of other things that we always talk about. I think the focus should move away from the number of years of the program. These are small innovations. The type of the program, the new program launch, new course, new methodologies, evaluation being very new. Yes, they're all required. But apart from that, I think we should solve fundamental problems, encourage students to look around within their society and apply basic sciences to solve problems. Like, for example, Sonam Wangchuk, the innovator who has used basic sciences to solve problems, creating ice stupas, spraying the water up, and then it becomes ice stupa, and you hold millions of gallons of water, and then that water is used to feed their forests and greenery. I think innovation will foster if our evaluation methods are little different from what they are normal. If there is a problem which is solved differently, will you give marks? Will you really accept the students if they come up with an alternative question? Do you really encourage them to ask questions in the first place? I think these are very, very important things from which we can learn and go on to the mode of innovation. I think this is a continuous parameter, continuous exercise which will have to be encouraged throughout in our education process, whether it is school education or higher education. Now, when a large number of people, for example, only 25 or 26% of the school students of 5th grade can do normal mathematics. That's one extreme, which means large number of them, 75% of them cannot do math of 5th graders. Or those of 14 years of age, for example, cannot apply real life or cannot deduce real life calculations. How do you apply discount for your calculation? Then there is a bigger gap in the education system in the learning teaching methodologies. These are problems. We'll have to solve those problems by being very effective. And sometimes I used to feel that a large number of problems in this world are attributed to the maths teachers who haven't done their job well in the school level. Well, we can have disagreement on that sometimes, but then that is also true, largely. Now, innovation in terms of accepting or making the students socially responsible, do we encourage alternative thought? Do we have students thinking about diversity? They are going to work with variety of human beings, variety of cultures, variety of regions, variety of technologies. Do they have the bandwidth, and is that instilled on purpose by strategy, by the institutions, so that they are prepared for future? The best way to understand future is to spend a lot of time with the kids, with the students. But then when we understand the kids and the kind of bandwidth that they have, and if we can allow them to prepare for the future, which is going to be as diverse as it can be, from simple things like allowing people who can have vegetarian and non-vegetarian food with equal ease around us, people with a different kind of dress sense to sit around us without any problem, people with a streak of color on their head, on their hair, will be allowed to sit in our classrooms without any biases, without any overt interjections, without any expressions which are not comfortable. Are we going to allow all these individuals, all these youngsters to grow up as responsible individuals by strategy? I think those are the innovations that I think we need to work on, apart from the regular stuff that we always do. Now, when we come to technology, again there's a lot of jargon, and I as I promised, we'll keep it simple. We'll not use jargon. Technology that helps us gain access, technology that helps us, for example, artificial intelligence enabled learning process or platforms that will tell you whether the kids are glued onto you or not, whether their retina is properly focusing on the content that you're giving on the digital platform is okay or not. Can we dovetail it into a different process? Can we give a game? Can we make it fun? Because some of the kids, and most of us also, learn at different levels. I'm told that from year number 1 to year number 8, they learn based on enjoyment and fun. The joy of learning is there. And from 8 to 14, it is basically on inquiry, by questioning. I've come across a very interesting organization called Science in India, which encourages groups of students to question. One group questions the other group, and you get marks for that. I think it's a redux of what we do in case study methodology in higher education, scenario-based education that we always require. I think we need to encourage, depending on the age group of learning, depending on the styles of learning, we need to encourage individuals and kids to use technology and then make the most of the learning in the classroom and beyond. In our pursuit to actually give access in learning 4.0 or what we call education 4.0, we are losing certain fundamentals. Yes, there is a support that is hugely available. There are a lot of edtech players who we come across. A large number of times the education technology is designed without the educator in mind. I have a hammer, therefore I am looking for a nail. That kind of methodology with which technologies are developed. I think the teacher or the educator should be the architect of the technology, and then it's going to be extremely useful. I think this fundamental point will miss. For the same solution, you have hundreds and hundreds of people, hundreds and hundreds of vendors vying for it without any value addition. And then there is a blame that the vice chancellors or the teachers and the faculty members do not have an understanding of what this technology is. It is over their head. They are outdated. Well, to some extent it may be right. But then, to what extent has this edutech entrepreneur innovated in a way to make a pitch for the vice chancellor, for the teacher, for the faculty member to understand and adopt this technology? I think the teacher has to be the epicenter of this technology. He has to be the architect. If that is not there, nothing there's no ownership. And therefore, they will not look at you. And therefore, it appears like a bouncer. And therefore, edutech is not making the progress that it should have been making by now. I think these are the issues. And I think we generally get lost in those details. And there are presentations and demos that are going around. And I have my good friend who is present here today, luckily, Hemant from Colpol. I came across his presentation, which provides, campus management systems, learning systems especially. Learning is a very important aspect in higher education. How can you provide the voice to it for the same learning? How can you actually provide voice search at the same time and also put it on the social graph? I think we discussed enough on those aspects. Then this is a real delight of using technology outside the classroom or inside the classroom. If we don't use that, and it is just periphery. We are always fighting on the periphery. We are blaming one another. Entities are trying to pass the blame on the other. That is not going to serve any purpose. Especially when, on an average, large number of people in this country, roughly around 40 crores of people, are using 8 GB data, internet data every month. That is the consumption in India. I think large internet usages, mobile-first methodologies are going to help. And there's a lot of fillip that is being given for entrepreneurs to do. But then you will have to keep the teacher in the center point and then develop these technologies. In my view, entrepreneurship is again a very interesting element. I was in a delegation to US last year, and then we were talking to one of the universities, and the name of the university is Stanford University. And in Stanford University, a lot of Indian vice chancellors and owners of various organizations, they were asking this question. Sir, what do you do differently that makes entrepreneurship a part of your DNA? Well, the answer can be very interesting, and the answer has been given, of course. But I think fundamental question is to ask ourselves. A large majority of the engineering colleges that we have in India, or at least some of the engineering colleges that I know, how do you practice entrepreneurship yourself? You pay a lakh of rupees to the faculty member and you take 50,000 little later. How do you actually practice? Kids, students, everybody is watching you. You are the first model of an entrepreneurship for them. Second, lot of incubation centers, Atal Tinkering Labs, and there's a greater movement and talk today. And therefore, in order to comply, you also have an incubator in your organization, in your institution. Now, these incubators, these centers, and these forays will have to be meaningful. Will you, as an institution, invest in your own incubator? Is the first question. If you can invest, it is like you're trusting in your own kids first before asking others to trust in your kids. I think that is the first test. If you really like the project, if you really like the entity that is part of your incubator, you invest fast and take the royalty. That will give a greater signal. That is going to actually add a lot of ownership. I think those are the questions that we need to ask, and we need to move in the right direction there. Now, at ICFI, we launched one innovative program long back. I think 30 years back, we launched one very innovative program called CFA. We brought it to India, and it was a runaway hit for the first 10 years. We no longer offer that program, but then programs which help individuals add value to the business and the community that they deal with are real programs of innovation. Methodologies that are making them more human at the same time using cutting-edge technology are most required. And in entrepreneurship, I'll end with this small story. In entrepreneurship, there's a very small story. There is a student who learned painting from, say, ICFA University. I'll not take anybody else's name. So there's a student, and he's learned that program in painting, and he's become a good painter, and therefore he has come to one of the directors and said, "Sir, I'm done now. What do I do? What's your one piece of advice for me before I graduate?" He said, "Okay, you do a painting and come to me." So he has done a nice painting, and he has gone to the director, and the director said, "Very good. This painting is very nice. Now, on this Burj Khalifa road, on the crossroads, you can keep this painting." He said that. And write a note saying that if you find any mistake in this painting, please put a cross mark, and you give a red paint over there with a brush, so that the moment I find a mistake, I pick it up and then cross it. That's the expected outcome. So it was kept in the morning at 10 o'clock, the same time that this conclave was supposed to start. And in between, the director was going out and looking at that painting. Nobody was doing that. Even that the student was getting disappointed. "Sir, there's no response." 12 o'clock, 12:30, Sudhakar is speaking. Nobody is making any comments there. It's lunchtime and nobody is making any comments. Evening, 4 o'clock, also no comments. And then the director said, "Come beta, come, wapas aa jao." He has called him into his cabin and said, "I think something's seriously wrong." He said, "You make that painting again, and this time write a different note. Write a different note." And the note is, the first one was, "If there is a mistake, please correct it." And the second one was, "If there is a mistake, just point it out." Everybody pointed out the mistakes on the next day, but nobody was willing to correct it. And I think every day entrepreneurs or youngsters, they always will be left to themselves to fend for themselves, find their own courage and strength. I think those traits and those qualities will have to be ingrained among the youngsters, apart from the other opportunities that we create, and be a role model for them, because they look at us first, as I said initially. We need to make them a robust, strong individual who is going to stay afloat and keep his head high, come what may. I think that is entrepreneurial mindset. Whether you work for yourself or you work for somebody else, soon after you graduate, I think you need to start taking ownership and also risk. Risk-taking coupled with ownership is entrepreneurial mindset, and that has to be encouraged. I thank FMA Digital. I thank Dialogue India Conclave for inviting me here. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me, and I see a larger crowd now. I'm thankful to all of you.